With so many options out there and so many new plugins being added every day, it's really important to search and explore at first, but over time, true value comes from creating your own toolbox. You know, a small collection of plugins that become the backbone of your sound and your workflow. So in this video, I wanted to share my own 5 favorites that I couldn't live without. Number 1. Something I've realized over the years is that however much I love analog dirt and color, it's also really important to have a couple of more transparent compressors in your toolbox. And in my opinion, there's nothing better than the Alicia compressors. In real life, they're $10,000 German built compressors that are super high-endy and classy. And even though they're more transparent compressors, they still have some sort of sound. Plus, you can add a transformer into the chain, giving them more color too. What I love about the sound is how they treat transients. You know, they do something really magical with transients, and they come in 2 different versions, the mix and the mastering version. And I tend to use the mix one for individual stuff, and I use the mastering one for middle and sides stuff, mainly on the mix bus. If you want to have my preset for the middle and sides configuration for the mix bus, I've added that in description below. Number 2, the UED Roland Space Echo. This is easily one of my most used pieces of equipment of all time, both as a hardware and as a plugin. And while most people think of it as an echo, I actually use it for so much more. Sometimes I use it to add texture to sounds, even without echo or reverb, you know, giving them a bit of that wobbly, chorusy feel, together with some natural saturation and filtering effects, and it can be quite magic in the right context. Number 3, I've always had a love affair with the TG equipment from Abbey Road in the late 60s, and there's a few different versions of the TG compressors. There's a TG1 compressor, there's the Zener plugin, and there's a TG channel strip. And there's something about the compressor in the Waves channel strip that I really like, and especially because it only does one thing really well. And there's simply no other plugin or compressor on the planet that sounds like this one. A one-trick pony on steroids. You know, it does its thing really well, and it sounds amazing. And I use it a lot on parallel treatments for drums or explosive stuff, especially if I really want to pump up the drum room of a drum kit and make it big and explosive. And if you want to watch me work with these plugins and tools in real life, I'm doing a workshop at Sonic Ranch in Texas in February. And if you want to join, there's a link in description below. So let's go back to the video. And number 4, probably one of the first plugins I would ever buy if I started mixing, the FabFilter Pro Q3. Because think about it, you can use it for so many different things, as a dynamic EQ, as a subtractive EQ, but also as a middle and sides EQ. Plus, it has a really good visual representation of the audio, and that's really useful if you're mixing in a less optimal environment or on headphones, because then you can see what's happening in the audio visually too, and compare that to what you're hearing. Anyone who read my books know that I used to work a lot on an API console back in London, and it was full of 550As and 560s, and ever since then I've been a big fan of API EQs. My personal favorite is the UED version, and recently I found another one that I sometimes actually like better than the UED one, because it sounds a little bit sweeter and more open in the top end. So I've started using this one more and more, and it's a sidecar that I mentioned before by Pulsar Modular. And I'm also really proud that Pulsar Modular are sponsoring this video, but I would still have mentioned this plugin just because I love the API and it's one of the best emulations. Number 6, my bonus plugin. And I could easily have said the Valhalla Reverb, because that is one of my favorites, but it would have been a little bit predictable. So I'm gonna give you my second go-to reverb instead, which is the EMT 250. And what I love about this reverb is that it's very 80s sounding, you know, cold in a good way, but it has a very warm, landscapey texture to it. So I use it a lot for synths and that kind of stuff, or pads. And it also has a really cool chorusy feature in it, so you can add chorus to reverbs, giving them extra thickness. So there you go. Those are my 6 go-to plugins that I could never live without. And I know I cheated, but you're also allowed to add another 6th plugin to your list. So leave a comment below and let me know what your plugins are that you could never live without.